Recently, I was watching a sermon by Louis Giglio, who's a megachurch pastor here in Atlanta. And he talked about being on an airplane flight and looking for something to watch while he was on this flight. And he came across a documentary called The Lost Leonardo, and it was all about this painting called the Salvator Mundi. So the next time I was on a flight, which I think was the very next week, I looked for this documentary and watched it. And it's so interesting because it's an hour and a half about one painting that is a painting of Jesus. So the way the story begins, this man who's an art collector who hunts for lost pieces of art, valuable pieces of art that people might not recognize have value, and he purchases them in hopes that he finds something that really is by a great artist. So one time when he was in New Orleans, he found this painting among others, and he believed it had value, and he bought it for, I think, a little over $1,100, maybe $1,150. He took it to some art historians. He took it to some art critics. And it did not take long before they came to the conclusion that this was most likely an original painting done by Leonardo da Vinci himself, by his very hand. They looked at it closely, they examined it, and eventually they restored it. Over time, as they presented it to other people, and they all agreed that it most likely was, although they couldn't verify it, it most likely was a Da Vinci, the painting began to sell, and he sold it, I think, originally for something like $89 million. And then it got sold for like $127 million. Eventually, it ended up at Christie's in London on auction and sold for over $400 million. The painting originally cost that man a little over $1,100. What changed? I mean, the art didn't change. Nothing about it changed other than they did restore it. What changed? What changed was they attributed it to a master artist, to one of the greatest artists of all time, who probably painted that same painting around the same time that he painted the Mona Lisa. So what's my point? Why do you have value? Because you were made by God, the greatest of all the artists, the greatest of all the sculptors. He is the one who breathed life into you. Why does anybody have value? Why does any human have value? Because they have the very same thing. The Bible says that we were all made in the image of God. So it doesn't matter if we're white or black or brown, or if we speak English or we speak some other language, or if we worship Jesus or we worship a false god. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if a person chooses right or chooses wrong. It doesn't matter if a person behaves a certain way, identifies a certain way. We're all made in the image of God, and therefore all people have value. Now, at times in my life, I haven't always remembered that. I have not always been nice to people. I have taken advantage of people. I have sinned against people. But the more I think about this one subject, and the more I really embrace the concept and the truth that we're all made in the image of God, I'm just reminded every day that every single person, whether I agree with them or not, is made in God's image. There are plenty of people I don't agree with on the internet. There are plenty of politicians I don't agree with, but they're made in the image of God and they have value. So we need to be careful how we treat people, how we talk to people, what we post about people on the internet and on Facebook and social media. We need to be careful how we portray people, what we say about people behind their back, which shouldn't happen at all, actually. But the reality is, all people have value. And because all people have value, that means all human life has value. God has given us dominion over the animals, not over other people. And so all human life, even the unborn life, the beating heart of a baby in the womb of a mother, has value, in my opinion. Just like the oldest of our citizens, the most seasoned, the most experienced of our citizens have value. And so we need to treat them with love and respect and recognize the wisdom and the experience they have in life and embrace it. And rather than look down on them or mistreating them in some way because we think they're done with life. No, there's a lot we can learn from those people. The Bible talks about the people with the gray hair. It uses the word silver. Mine's just straight gray. I think we all need to remember this, but here's one more thought. You need to be careful what you say about yourself. You need to be careful what you say to yourself. And you need to be careful how you treat your body, because you were made in the image of God. And he wants you to take care of yourself and treat yourself as a masterpiece, as a work of art, because that's how he sees you. He's the master artist, and you are his masterpiece. Have a great week. Keep walking with Jesus. I'll see you next time.